Alright, we're back again with the Junker ATV. And as the title states, we're going to be substituting a torque converter in place of the original centrifugal clutch and chain and tensioner assembly that makes up our driveline on this machine. I want to try to put a torque converter in here so I could see if I get better low-end torque and acceleration and maybe a few extra miles an hour in the top speed, especially if I change the drive gear on the axle. But the main thing we have to start with is, well, disassembling everything on the old driveline. Pulling the torque converter, pulling the chains and centrifugal clutch out, tensioners, all that stuff. And then bolting up our torque converter assembly to the engine. And from there, I'll have to see how our driven chain on the torque converter assembly aligns with the drive gear on the axle. Alright, we have our torque converter plate bolted up to the engine. I actually had to pretty much disconnect the entire engine and everything, like the exhaust that was hooked up to it, because I had to raise the engine up about, I would say, an inch, give or take. And in order to do that, I had to put spacers underneath the engine where the mounting bolts go to accomplish that goal of getting the engine up enough. But as such, our driven pulley is cleared of the framework right here. And if we look at our drive pulley right here and the driven sprocket on the torque converter assembly, they actually appear to be in line. So we might be good to go on that end. Next thing I have to do is put our driver pulley onto the torque converter, get that secured, and then go ahead and trim the chain down and see if I'm going to end up reusing our original tensioning hardware to tension the chain up. Alright, we have our driveline pretty much done. I ended up omitting the Teflon chain guide that I had right here because it really wasn't needed. I ended up shortening the chain some, and I just kept the tension roller right here to see how that goes. There might be a possibility that I will have to put the chain guide back, but we'll have to see when we do a test ride of this thing to see if this thing throws the chain or breaks the link or whatever. But I ended up having to put two master links, a half link and a full master link on here, because without the half link the chain was just a teeny bit too short. So, and for all intents with both links on there, the chain was just a teeny bit too long. But it'd be better for it to be too long and then tension with the tensioner than to have it so tight that it's real close to just snapping on its own anyway. So we're good on that. But the next thing that I have to do is put our cover on the torque converter, and because of the close placement to the frame and all, I'm gonna have to, and with the chain too, I'm gonna have to trim this thing, especially around here where the chain will be passing through, and along the bottom right here where one of the mounting points is sitting right on top of the frame. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a little measuring, eyeballing, and trimming to get it just right and get our cover on. So then the last thing we have to do is redo our exhaust pipe. Where our engine currently sits, the exhaust pipe is unable to be used. I already took a moment to cut the pipe from the flange, so it'll be just a simple thing to just reposition the pipe on the flange and then just put a few little tack welds around it, and then remove this assembly and finish weld all the way around, and then bolt everything back down so our exhaust pipe will be secured to the engine in its new position, ready to rock and roll. So with that, we can now see what happens with this thing with our new torque converter. Alright, we have our exhaust pipe re-welded and mounted back in place on the engine. I had to relocate our throttle cable because it was zip tied right here at first, and obviously that won't work, so I just threw another zip tie right here and pulled it well enough away from the exhaust pipe to keep it safe. But the pipe is nice and solid, ain't going anywhere, and as such there's no need for a cover on here, because between the torque converter cover and the tucked in location of our exhaust pipe, I would think we're pretty well off on all this stuff to not have to worry about any kind of extra covering. So with that, I think it's time for a ride. bike, that was actually pretty cool. This thing has some crazy acceleration. It will get up to speed with no sweat compared to the centrifugal clutch. Even on the rougher terrain, like going through the woods, this thing just crawls through the semi-mushy ground and climbs over embankments without even thinking about it, compared to the centrifugal clutch. I was even able to get the front wheels to lift up a couple of times while trying to do a speed test run, and I popped the throttle on our straightaway, which is pretty cool in and of itself. Speaking of speed tests, we lost a couple miles per hour compared to the centrifugal clutch. The centrifugal clutch topped off around 34, 35 miles per. Our torque converter tops off around 32 to 33 miles per. But that couple of miles per hour less on the top speed is more than made up for with the rapid acceleration off the line that we have right now. And because this machine is really not designed to go 30 miles per hour, much less 35 plus, the rapid acceleration is really more desired anyway compared to a higher top speed. So because of that, I'm probably not even going to think about doing our drive gear change on the axle, because for me to gain a few more miles per hour on the top speed and lose on the low end torque and acceleration ability that this thing now has for use probably almost anywhere that we would typically go with this thing or a similar machine, I'd rather keep it as it is. We have a happy medium right now. Now, on a lighter note, even without our chain guide, the chain still stayed on here just fine. Our tensioner roller really ain't tensioning anything because we still have some slack in the chain, but it kind of served a secondary purpose of guiding the chain for all intents. We also had a little bit of rubbing on the chain on the bottom of the torque converter cover, which will eventually probably stop as the chain wears the plastic out. But other than that, this thing is actually working as designed. It's doing what it's supposed to do, which is run like a bat out of hell, even if it doesn't top off high. So because of that, I'm going to leave this thing alone for right now and at least be able to enjoy this thing like I always wanted to. So with that, I'm going to end it here. Hit the like button. Likes are free. Subscribe. Hit the notification button to be kept up to date on this machine and other machines. Check out the TikTok, Facebook, website, Instagram, all that good stuff for other videos and posts on other stuff we got going on around here. And stay tuned. There might be more coming with this thing or something else. Who knows? Either way, I'll catch you later. I think I'm going to go for a ride again. This is fun.